Lewis, I've been thinking about something. Everyone talks about JFK's assassination like it's the ultimate conspiracy theory, but why? What actually happened that day?
Max, that's a massive question. But I'll tell you this. It's not just about what happened. It's about what came after. The cover-up, the secrets, the way the government handled it. That's where things get really interesting.
Cover up. So there was a conspiracy?
Hold on. Let me walk you through this properly. First, you need to understand who JFK was. People loved this guy. He was young, good-looking, always with his beautiful family. He gave people confidence, a sense of hope.
I've seen the photos. He seemed almost too perfect.
Right. He rode that positive image all the way to becoming the 35th president. But here's what matters. This was the early 1960s. America was the global superpower, locked in a Cold War with the Soviet Union. Nuclear weapons everywhere. Constant tension.
And JFK walked into that?
Exactly. But here's the thing. When JFK became president, he found his military and intelligence leaders causing serious trouble around the world. They were funding wars, overthrowing governments in distant countries, assassinating foreign leaders who threatened American interests. And they were doing most of this in complete secret.
Wait, the CIA was assassinating people?
Yes, leaders who threatened American interests. It was all covert operations. And JFK? He walks in and says, "This is too much." He wanted to rein in these spy and military leaders. He saw it as an abuse of American power.
That must have made him some enemies.
Absolutely. He fired and demoted a bunch of these leaders. Intelligence guys, military guys who were plotting and executing these operations. He pursued world peace instead. When nuclear-armed missiles showed up in Cuba, he chose diplomacy. He slowed down momentum toward a full-scale war in Vietnam. He shut down several covert operations that were being planned.
So he was going against the entire military-industrial complex?
In a way, yes. This caused enormous tension between JFK and America's military and spy leadership. Remember that context. It's crucial for understanding what happened next.
Okay, so November 1963. What happened that day?
Friday morning, November 22nd, 1963. JFK and Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson arrive in Dallas. The president was scheduled to give a speech. He got into an open-top limousine with his wife Jackie, the Texas Governor John Connally, and Connally's wife Nellie.
Open top? No protection?
That's how they did it back then. They rode through downtown Dallas, streets lined with cheering spectators, and then gunshots rang out.
The shots that killed him.
The shots hit the president in the neck and head. Governor Connally was also wounded. They rushed Kennedy to Parkland Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The whole country went into shock.
I can't even imagine. And they caught someone right away?
Within hours, yes. The prime suspect became this 24-year-old former Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald. Self-declared communist. He had actually renounced his American citizenship and moved to the Soviet Union.
To Russia?
Yes, but then he became disenchanted with life there and moved back to the U.S. Eventually, he ended up working in this building in Dallas, the Texas School Book Depository, on the 6th floor. That's where he was that morning in November. According to the official story, he aimed a rifle from that window and shot the president.
What did he do after?
He fled. While on the run, he shot and killed a Dallas police officer. Then he hid in a movie theater and was arrested around 2:15 p.m. that same day.
Did he confess?
No, he denied everything. Said he was just a patsy, an old term for a fall guy, someone being set up. There was supposed to be a trial where he planned to plead not guilty.
Supposed to be?
We'll get to that. Meanwhile, Vice President Johnson was rushed back to the presidential plane and sworn in as the new president of the United States before taking off back to Washington. At the same time, the FBI descended on Dallas.
The FBI took over?
Yes, and very quickly. I mean, shockingly quickly. The FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, came to a conclusion about what happened. This is before any real investigation had taken place. Hoover decided that Oswald absolutely did it. He was a communist sympathizer, a frustrated misfit, and crucially, he acted alone. No one else involved.
How could he know that so fast?
Exactly. Great question. There's actually a phone call between Hoover and the new president, LBJ. Hoover says, "There's no question but that he is the man now. The fingerprints and things we have." He was certain.
But they still had to have a trial, right? Let the evidence speak?
That's what should have happened. They had a justice system. The country deserved to see the facts thoroughly examined, to get closure, to see whoever did it brought to justice. But that never happened.
What do you mean it never happened?
2 days after the assassination, while Oswald was being transferred from police headquarters to the county jail, a nightclub owner named Jack Ruby jumped out in front of a crowd of police officers and news reporters and shot Oswald. Right there, in front of everyone.
He shot him? In public?
Yes, Oswald was rushed to the hospital, the same hospital where Kennedy had died just 48 hours earlier, and he died soon after. No trial, no real sense of justice. Just dead.
That's incredibly suspicious.
Right? With Oswald dead, there could be no trial. This left the FBI with the opportunity to really control the narrative of what happened. The very next day, the Deputy Attorney General sends a memo to the White House stressing that the public must be satisfied with the explanation that Oswald acted alone. No co-conspirators still at large. This had to be the story.
Why was that so important?
I'll explain. But first, notice something in that same memo. It included advice, almost like a warning, urging the White House to release as much information as possible to the public to avoid speculation.
Release information to avoid speculation. Makes sense?
Remember that advice. It becomes the most important part of this entire story. Now, we have these recently released phone recordings between Hoover and President Johnson. In them, you can hear that the FBI actually didn't want a thorough investigation.
Wait, the FBI didn't want to investigate?
Listen to what they said. LBJ says, "I think it would be very, very bad to have a rash of investigations." And Hoover responds, "It'd be a three-ring circus." They wanted to control it. So LBJ creates this group called the Warren Commission.
To investigate the assassination?
Supposedly. But here's the thing. In these phone calls, LBJ was asking Hoover who should be on the commission. And Hoover suggests Allen Dulles.
Who's that?
The former director of the CIA. One of the guys that JFK fired after he tried to overthrow the Cuban government. And now he's being appointed to the committee investigating Kennedy's assassination.
That's insane. How is that not a conflict of interest?
It is, and it did nothing to build trust in the commission. But they went ahead anyway. The Warren Commission was appointed. 7 prominent Americans tasked with investigating the assassination. They were given just 10 months to investigate, using evidence mostly provided by the FBI.
Only 10 months for something this important?
Exactly. And they produced this massive report, which essentially confirmed the conclusion that Hoover had reached within hours of the assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald fired the shots that killed the president and wounded the governor. And crucially, he acted alone.
They just confirmed what Hoover already said?
The report stressed very definitively that Oswald and Jack Ruby, the guy who killed him, were not part of any conspiracy, domestic or foreign. All shots came from the 6th floor of that building. And here's a key detail. There were only 3 shots fired. 3 bullets.
Why does the number of bullets matter?
Because of what those 3 bullets supposedly did. The report says the first bullet likely missed the car completely. But the second bullet... This is where it gets interesting. The second bullet allegedly hit the president in the back, then exited his chest. Then it entered the governor's back, went through his rib, exited his chest, entered his wrist, shattered the wrist bone, exited the wrist, and went partially into the governor's leg.
Wait, one bullet did all of that?
According to the Warren Commission, yes. 7 wounds from 1 bullet. They call it the single bullet theory. And the bullet they recovered, the one that supposedly made this incredible journey through 2 bodies, looked nearly pristine. Some ballistics experts said it looked way too perfect for a bullet that just went through 2 human bodies.
That does seem suspicious.
The third bullet, according to the commission, was the fatal headshot to the president. So all the damage, all the wounds on both victims, had to be explained with just 3 bullets.
Because they only found 3 shell casings?
Exactly. Hoover said right after the assassination, "On that floor, we found 3 empty shells that had been fired." So if all this damage was done with more than 3 bullets, that would mean there had to be more than one shooter. A conspiracy.
But there couldn't be a conspiracy because Hoover had already decided it was just one guy.
Now you're getting it. Hoover adopted that conclusion right after the assassination, before any investigation. And that thinking carried into the Warren Commission, a commission that Hoover himself helped the president assemble. They used cherry-picked evidence from the FBI that supported their already drawn conclusions. They turned focus away from exploring other possibilities, including conspiracy. The report focused almost entirely on one guy, Lee Harvey Oswald, and his 3 bullets.
This feels backwards. Shouldn't they investigate first, then conclude?
Yes, that's how it should work. But they ignored witnesses who contradicted their story. They ignored or modified signed reports from surgeons and doctors who worked with Kennedy immediately after he arrived at the hospital.
What did those doctors say?
They said the wounds in the president's neck and chest area looked like they came in from the front, not from the building behind him. The FBI and Warren Commission ignored all of that. They ignored the advice from that memo I mentioned earlier, the one that said to release all the facts to avoid speculation.
Why would they do that? Why not just do a proper investigation?
That's the key question, Max. And the answer has a lot to do with the greatest fears facing America in the early 1960s. Remember, this was the heart of the Cold War. Constant fear of nuclear apocalypse. Extreme tension between the US and Soviet Union.
So they were worried about starting a war?
Exactly. If this assassination was seen as an attempt to topple the government, or worse, if it had been organized by the Soviet Union or Cuba, that would create panic among the American public. It would be very different from just one communist sympathizer acting alone.
A conspiracy would create pressure to strike back.
Right, which could lead to escalation with another nuclear-armed nation. Also, the CIA had its own incentives to keep the investigation narrow. At that time, they were secretly conducting operations to assassinate Cuba's leader, Fidel Castro.
The CIA was trying to kill Castro?
Yes, it was a huge secret at the time. Any deep investigation into possible conspiracy with Cuba might reveal that the CIA was trying to assassinate Castro. That wouldn't be good for them.
So everyone had reasons to keep things simple.
You can read all of this, the memos, the rushed conclusion, the emphasis on Oswald acting alone, the need for only 3 bullets, as government officials scrambling to keep the American public calm. To prevent pandemonium, to reduce the possibility of geopolitical escalation with the Soviet Union. You can see it in phone calls, where Johnson is deeply worried about keeping Americans united around a simplified narrative.
He thought alternative theories would threaten the system?
That's what he believed. So their tactic was to hijack the narrative, suppress and influence the investigation, and make it simple. Oswald did it. That's it. End of story.
But that only works if people believe you.
Exactly. Here's the problem. Eventually, people do the math. They realize the government has been keeping the full picture from them. And that's exactly what happened next.
People stopped trusting the official story?
The Warren Commission files its report with the official story. But soon after, members of the Warren Commission themselves come out and say they don't actually believe parts of the story they just put out, especially the single bullet theory.
The commissioners themselves didn't believe it?
One commissioner said flat out, "I could not convince myself that the same bullet struck both of them." Governor Connolly, the guy who was supposedly shot by that single bullet, he disagreed with the story. He said, "I just don't happen to believe that."
What about President Johnson?
Even LBJ wasn't totally convinced. He was secretive about it, but he eventually told a reporter from The Atlantic that he thought it was a conspiracy, that Cuba was retaliating against the US for all those CIA assassination attempts on their leader.
So everyone involved had doubts about their own story?
Pretty much. This was not good for the Warren Commission. Then, 12 years after the assassination, something major happened. A full, uncut version of a film showing the assassination finally aired on national TV.
Why did it take 12 years?
Great question. The film was shot by a Dallas dress manufacturer named Abraham Zapruder. It shows the execution of President Kennedy in graphic detail. This was the first time Americans could see solid visual evidence of the event.
And it contradicted the official story?
To many people, yes. It sparked new demand for real answers from a government that kept acting like it was hiding something. And this happened at a time when Americans were already losing massive faith in the federal government. The CIA's covert operations were coming to light. The country was stuck in Vietnam. The president's people had just been caught spying on political opponents. Watergate.
The government hadn't earned anyone's trust.
Exactly. So people started thinking, maybe the government was also behind JFK's assassination. This feeling intensified after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, another suspicious killing. It was all too much. People wanted answers.
Did Congress do anything?
Yes, in a rare moment of redemption, Congress responded by forming a committee that reopened investigations into both assassinations, JFK and MLK. This committee did a real investigation. They were earnest about it.
What did they find?
They confirmed what many Americans already felt, that the Warren Commission's investigation didn't sufficiently look into the possibility of conspiracy. They said it point blank. The Warren Commission was too fixated on their assumption that it had to be a lone gunman. Their conclusions were way too definitive.
Did they call out the FBI and CIA?
Specifically, they said the FBI and CIA withheld information from the investigation. One FBI agent even testified that he was ordered by his superiors to destroy evidence, a letter Oswald had written to the FBI.
They destroyed evidence? Why?
The agent said his superior told him, "Oswald's dead now. There can be no trial. Get rid of this." Why was the FBI destroying evidence? The committee concluded there was a high probability that two gunmen fired at JFK and that it was probably a conspiracy.
So it was a conspiracy?
Hold on. They stopped short of trying to determine who the other gunman was or who organized the conspiracy. And they made the recommendation again that all information on this topic be made public.
Did that happen?
Not right away. But I should mention, the committee's conclusion about conspiracy relied heavily on one piece of evidence, a sound recording from that day where you can supposedly hear more than 3 gunshots, suggesting multiple shooters.
That sounds pretty solid.
Except that evidence was later challenged and basically debunked. The FBI and another research facility said the recording wasn't even gunshots and wasn't recorded during the assassination.
So back to square one?
In a way, but here's what matters. The committee confirmed that the Warren Commission had been cherry-picking evidence and hiding information from the American people. That confirmation was huge.
Because it proved people's suspicions?
Exactly. After the congressional committee confirmed the FBI and CIA had been hiding evidence, conspiracy theories rose up again. This culminated in a major movie in the early 1990s, Oliver Stone's JFK, that painted an alternative picture of what could have happened. A shadowy government conspiracy to kill the president, or at least to cover up the real story.
Was the movie accurate?
It was largely conjecture based on some elements of truth. Some argued it was irresponsibly misleading to suggest the government killed the president. But in a world where the government wasn't being clear and forthright, this film felt like a response.
If the government won't tell the truth, people will create their own truth.
Exactly. Maybe the government was hiding the truth. Maybe they did it. Maybe they're covering something up. We don't know because they haven't released information. The movie was popular and people latched onto the theories.
Did that change anything?
Public pressure got so intense that Congress finally decided to do what they should have done in the 60s. Force all agencies to release all information. In 1992, Congress passed a law that would lay the foundation for releasing all documents related to the assassination by October 2017.
So they finally released everything?
They assembled a committee and gave them several years to go through all documents, re-examine the official account, and prepare for public release. The chairman of that committee found more inconsistencies, discrepancies, and instances of potential cover-up.
Like what?
Like the autopsy. What the doctors and surgeons saw and recorded moments after Kennedy was shot was very different from what the official autopsy record showed when it was released. The way wounds were described, where they were located, what the brain looked like, all of it had been changed or modified.
They changed the autopsy?
The photos themselves may have been altered, and the brain itself literally went missing. It's unaccounted for.
The president's brain went missing?
Yes. Releasing these records also revealed the CIA and FBI had been keeping tabs on Oswald's whereabouts before the assassination. Maybe that makes sense since he was a Soviet sympathizer, but why didn't anyone know that before?
What else did they find?
The Secret Service had destroyed documents, original motorcade route sheets, surveillance tapes from that day, just destroyed them. The committee chairman said they ultimately found those documents through another agency, so no harm done. But a lot of stuff was still missing.
Like what?
One guy at the CIA took control of the investigation a couple weeks after the assassination, and all his records are just gone. Did he destroy them? Maybe. There's no record. In total, they released 5 million documents by 2017. Basically everything, except a few thousand documents, the CIA still refuses to release.
Why would they still keep secrets?
Good question. Even after 5 million documents were released to a public hungry for answers, there's still no smoking gun evidence pointing to a conspiracy. No evidence pointing to anyone other than Lee Harvey Oswald as the person who assassinated the president by himself.
So the official story is true?
The evidence may exist somewhere, but it's been destroyed or hidden. The point is, the government could have released these 5 million documents in the 60s. They could have done this back when people wanted it, when they should have. It wouldn't have changed their official story, and it would have satisfied a skeptical public.
But they didn't, and now it's too late?
I think so. The feeling that the government was hiding something has sunk deep into the American psyche. We all kind of think, the JFK assassination, yeah, something was up there. They're never going to regain our trust on this because of how much information was hidden over the decades.
So what do people believe now?
On the internet, from people who are actually pretty credible, you have alternative explanations everywhere. Maybe it was LBJ who planned it so he could become president. Maybe it was a rogue faction in the CIA who wanted to take out JFK because he was shutting down their operations. That's actually one of the most feasible theories.
What about Cuba?
That's what LBJ thought. He believed Cuba did it because the US had been trying to assassinate their leader. The point is, because of the information vacuum left by the CIA and FBI holding back evidence, people started grasping at any evidence they could find for conspiracy.
Like what kind of evidence?
They started connecting dots about witnesses who met mysterious or suspicious deaths. Many theorists fixate on this mysterious man holding an umbrella in the video, on a sunny day. Maybe he was giving a signal to a second shooter?
An umbrella signal?
It sounds crazy, but some of it is actually valid as leads for further investigation. Despite a lot of really fishy stuff, though, I haven't seen any solid evidence that proves an alternative story to what we were told in the 60s, that Lee Harvey Oswald did it and acted alone.
Do you think there was a conspiracy?
I think it's very plausible there could have been. But I also think we'll never know because we simply don't have the evidence. One thing I do know for certain is that the moment this investigation turned into an effort to stifle information and push facts toward one conclusion, it laid the foundation for the public to turn this into a cesspool of speculation.
Because they felt lied to.
Exactly. That feeling of being lied to by your government, it's very potent. It sticks with you. It creates fertile ground for conspiracy theories of all kinds to sprout.
So the cover-up is worse than the crime?
In a way, yes. When you feel like you're being lied to by your own democracy, by your own leaders, no matter the reason or justification, it makes you feel like you're on your own, like no one's got your back, like you're the one who needs to find the real truth.
And that's where conspiracy theories take root.
That's exactly the space where the most enduring conspiracy theories find their footing. It's not just about JFK anymore. It's about trust, about transparency, about whether we can believe what our government tells us.
So, what should we take away from all this?
That information matters. That transparency matters. That when governments hide things from their people, even with good intentions, they create something far worse than the truth they're trying to suppress. They create doubt. Deep, lasting doubt that poisons everything that comes after.
Do you think we'll ever know the full truth?
Honestly, probably not. Too much has been destroyed or hidden. Too much time has passed. But the lesson is clear. The moment you start hiding information from people who deserve answers, you've already lost their trust. And once that trust is gone, it's almost impossible to get back.